Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Welcome to Excuse My Frenemy, the podcast where we talk about some of the big topics in sports, and where two fans of rival teams try to put their sports allegiances aside, but will probably fail to do so. Thank you for giving us your time of your day. We know your time's valuable. We appreciate you giving us a listen. My name is Shawn Brady, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Katie Cabrera. How's it going, Casey?
Hey, Shawn, I'm doing pretty good. Hope everybody had a fantastic Halloween. I mean, I can't complain. Another day, another dollar.
Well, some of us don't even get dollars, so but I'm happy for you. But yeah, everybody be safe with that Halloween candy. Unfortunately, there are some people in this world that are pretty bad. So check your kids' candy, and while you're checking it, if you want to pocket some of it, that's okay too. Parent tax is a real thing.
I, I mean, I wouldn't know. My son eats carrots and he's a dog.
Yeah, that doesn't qualify. Anyway, on this episode, we will discuss the NFL. We'll talk about the World Series. We'll get into the College Football Committee's initial rankings. And we have a couple of other topics to discuss. So the last segment is going to just be like a hodgepodge of a lot of topics put in together. But anyway, let's get moving on to our first topic, which is the NFL.
Whoop, whoop.
KC, as always, ladies first. If nothing else, I am a gentleman. What do you want to talk about this week? Or excuse me, from last week in the NFL?
Well, first off, let me just start off with saying last time we did our podcast last week, there was a very disappointing news for my Seahawks, but let me give them a little quick shout out for actually finally having a win under their belt. We had the Jaguars versus the Seahawks last week, and we led them from 7-31. So now that means Seahawks are 3-5, while the Jaguars are 1-6. Not surprising. But we needed this. For God's sakes, we needed this. Going into it, Gino, you've been a disappointment from last game, but you relived it this past game. So let's talk about it a little bit more. We had Gino make 2 touchdowns. We had him make the first touchdown, leading Seahawks 7-0 with the Jaguars, followed by Geno Smith passing a 16-yard to Metcalf, and that leads us for another touchdown, 0-14 within the first half. I mean, it was an impressive game. Finally, we got to see more of Geno's plays, more Geno trying to score touchdowns. And also, we started to see a little bit more of an effort from the receivers and defense line. I mean, it wasn't until like the fourth quarter that the Jaguars made a quick pass to Lawrence, and he scored it. That made the match 7-31, but overall, I think the Seahawks did a great job this past week, and I'm just hoping that during this bypass week, we actually get a little bit more of a practicing and get ready for our next game. I don't know, man. What do you think?
I think it was the Jags. Don't get me wrong, you guys looked good, but we both said last week, if you don't win this game as the Seahawks, then when do you ever win another game? So,
yeah,
not surprised one bit, but I do think you guys desperately needed the bye week, because do you know who your next 2 opponents are after the bye week?
Sadly, I do.
Yeah, good old Green Bay and then Arizona. You need all the prep you guys can get.
I mean, I know for the Arizona, it'll be a great game for us. I mean, that's going to definitely, to our audience, expect us to be talking about that game for sure. But yeah, you said it. The Packers are coming up next for the next game for the Seahawks. And I got to tell you, I mean, after this finally win that the Seahawks got, it should be an interesting, if we're going to see if Seahawks will do better, or like you said, if it was just the Jaguars and Seahawks are just not in it for this season.
Yeah, because knowing my luck, Russell Wilson comes back during the Cardinals week.
Yeah, I can already imagine your face like, ah.
Of course. Now he comes back.
But, I mean, leading on to next great news. Well, for me, finally.
Don't say it.
Let's talk about your Cardinals.
Why? Damn it. All right. Well, yes, as I always would give you grief whenever the Seahawks would lose about how you never wanted to talk about their loss and all this. So if I'm not going to be hypocritical, I have to turn around and I have to acknowledge and discuss the Cardinals' loss to the Packers. But I'm not going to go the route you think I'm probably going to go. Not going to complain about the loss. Hey, Packers came in with a great game plan. They took it to us. I tip the cap, so to speak. Yeah, we had a chance to win at the end of the game, but we really had no business being in that game. But the part of that game that frustrates me the most actually has nothing to do with the Cardinals. All I heard for the next 2 days after that game was how great Aaron Rodgers is. Oh, this is just proof that he's great. He doesn't have any weapons, blah, 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 blah. All that. Let me give you the top 4 reasons the Packers won that game. First, A.J. Dillon, the running back that I had never heard of pretty much before that game, all of a sudden turned into Derrick Henry and just plowed through our defense. We couldn't tackle him. He kept drives alive in an insane way. He's number 1. Number 2, it's Aaron, but not Aaron Rodgers, rather Aaron Jones, the other running back. He not only ran for numerous yards, but he also killed us receiving-wise. Now, granted, great game plan, but those 2 guys are the 1 and 2 reasons why Green Bay basically took it to us. Implied in that is the third reason, which is the Packers' offensive line, because if those guys are running well, that means that your offensive line is producing pretty well. So I want to give a shout out to the offensive line. They basically dominated our D-line. Their running backs were being touched till they got to the second level, which is never a good thing. Then the last one I want to give a shout out to is the Packers' defense, because the big thing with Cardinals is offense. So like everybody talks about our offense. I ain't gonna lie, their defense, they had a great game plan. They shut us down. And the fact that we didn't even get it going until late in that game is just proof of how good their game plan was. But please note, none of those reasons was Aaron Rodgers. I know quarterbacks get too much of the credit, too much of the blame. But that game, Aaron Rodgers was mediocre at best. I mean, yeah, he had 2 touchdowns, but the furthest one, I think, was like 6 yards. So he was not the reason they won their game. The Packers' time of possession, they had 15 more minutes than we did. The only reason the Cardinals were even in that game is because the goal line defense in the second half were making them settle for field goals instead of touchdowns. And now I say all that, but AJ Green, you got to look for the ball. Sorry.
Oh, definitely.
But we had no business being in that game, but it doesn't mean I still didn't want to win it. So.
Right. But I mean, hey, you were definitely really close. I mean, we're talking about 24-21. Cardinals did put up a game. So
at worst, I was thinking overtime. Until AJ Green doesn't turn around. I'm like, oh. But it was kind of fitting because like I said, we had no business being in that game. We were dominated from the beginning. So looking forward to this next coming week, though, I want to do something a little different because we're kind of approaching about the middle of the season. I want to take a look at some of the teams that have been pleasant surprises and some of the teams that have been not so pleasant surprises. And keep in mind, all these teams are based off the expectations at the beginning of the year. My first team is the Cincinnati Bengals. And I hear the screaming now, Brady, what are you talking about? They just lost to the Jets. I get that. But remember, this is expectation at the beginning of the year. Who had the Bengals at 5-3 and second place in the division? Nobody. Absolutely nobody. It was either going to be Baltimore or Cleveland. I think Pittsburgh was penciled in as a solid third team, and everybody had the Bengals bringing up the rear. So the fact they're even where they're at is great. The next one I have is the Tennessee Titans. Like 6-2. I didn't have any respect for the Titans at the beginning of the year, mainly because of their defense, but they have actually been very good. Now comes their real big test because now that Derrick Henry is out for the foreseeable future, if not the season, I think it's going to be tough. But I don't think they're as bad as everybody is saying they are. I don't think they're doomed. Their next games are against the Rams. Okay, that's probably an L. But then they got the Saints without Jameis Winston. Then they get the Packers, the Patriots, a bye week, and the Jags. That's not a tough schedule outside the Rams. So they're already 6-2. Even if they go 3-2 in that stretch, they end up 9-4. Still great position to make the playoffs. Next positive team I got is the Raiders. Their 3-0 start kind of helped, but they've been doing better. I fully expected them to totally tank after the John Gruden stuff, and they have done anything but that. Shout out to them. The next team I have is the Cowboys. Like, they're not surprising the fact they're first place in the division because I expected them to win the division. I'm just surprised that they are where they are right now, being, I believe, 6-1. And then the last surprise, of course, who saw it coming other than me? The answer is nobody. Put your hands down if you're raising your hand. But you know my 7-1 Cardinals, tied for the best record in the league. Of course, that's a surprise.
Right.
You got any other teams that are pleasant surprises so far?
No, I mean, so far you have you've named all of them so far. So, I mean, my biggest surprise, of course, is the Cardinals. I mean, jokingly at work, we would always joke about it, but to see them in action and see how good they're doing this season is amazing. So, I gave it to you hands down. I'm waiting for our game, of course, in about 2 weeks. Not 3 weeks. And then hopefully from there we get to talk more crap to each other. So I'm waiting for that.
What what
Other,
what, what are you thinking? Betting on lunch?
you know what? Let's do it.
All
Lunch.
right, all right,
Lunch. There you go.
all right. Bet on
This is
lunch.
this
Okay.
is something that we're gonna have to bet a lunch on. Another game that I'm gonna be looking forward to is the Niners with the Cardinals. That's another game because I mean, give and take. I guess I know Niners have a game. I know Niners can play a good game, but the Cardinals are gonna actually be taking that game away. So that's gonna be an interesting one.
Yeah, I'm nervous because
A little nervous.
they're not sure if Kyler Murray's going to play, and I don't know if Trey Lance is going to play because the last time we played, it was a tight game all the way to the end. But I got faith. They'll come through. So let me real quick go over my not so pleasant surprises, and I'm going to be quick because some of these are very painful to even say out loud. The first team is the 1-7 Dolphins. I never thought they'd be world beaters, but I thought they'd be kind of contending for that last playoff spot. Boy, was I wrong. They're
Right.
not very good right now. The next team is the Colts. I think me and you both had the Colts winning that division easily at the beginning of the year. And their poor performance combined with the Titans' great performance, that's not going to happen, I don't think.
Right.
I don't think anybody saw this one as the Chiefs.
No, definitely not.
Nobody had them losing 4 games all season, let alone 4 games in the first 8 weeks. So, and the last two, I threw in here the Niners because everybody thought they were going to be better than they were. I didn't. I wasn't sold because I think they were living off their glory from 2 years ago in the Super Bowl, and everybody blamed injuries last year. But I didn't think they were that great last year, even before they got hurt. I don't think injuries helped. And then lastly, I have to do it, Katie.
Yeah.
Your Seahawks are bringing
Yeah.
up the unpleasant surprise because I'm not exactly upset about it. However, I admit that I had them higher than 3-5 at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I didn't see this one coming. Honestly, I thought my Seahawks were gonna either be second in the West Coast, but I guess not. The Chiefs for sure was a bad surprise for me. I mean, I never expected them to be I didn't know they were gonna be struggling.
And oh, by the way, the Chiefs, they're 4-4 after barely beating the Giants.
Oh man.
So yeah, it's also, yeah, I know you are what your record says you are, but even that's a kind of a misleading 4-4. So
Yeah.
okay, KC, let's go ahead and let's move on to our predictions for next week. Let me see. First game, the 4-4 Cleveland Browns going into Cincinnati to take the 5-3 Bengals. All right, KC, who you got?
For this one, I am giving it all to Cincinnati.
I also have Cincinnati, especially with the Odell Beckham news coming out in the last day or so. He may or may not even be on the team come Sunday.
Right.
More on that to follow. But yeah, I got Cincinnati too because it's refreshing to see Cincinnati be good. They've been bad for so long. I want to see them do good.
Right.
The next game's not really, I think, high on
yeah.
anybody's radar, but because they got the similar records and they're both kind of in the middle of the pack doing their thing, I threw it in here. I got the 4-4 New England Patriots going into Carolina to face the 4-4 Carolina Panthers.
And I hope you know already who I'm going to go for this game. I mean, it's no surprise. I'm going to say the Patriots. I have faith that they're going to be taking on the Carolina, but 4-4, 4-4. You can't go wrong on either one, but I'm going to go with my Patriots on this one.
I'm going to go with Carolina.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, because it is in Carolina, and I'm hoping that they will be motivated by either Christian McCaffrey returning or that he will soon be returning. So I think they're kind of in that same crunch mode like the Seahawks were in last week of, hey, you need this game for your season to be legitimate. So
Right.
I think they're kind of in that do or die mode. So I'm going to go with Carolina.
All right.
All right, next game, and this which has gotten a little more interesting after the last day or so. The 7-1 Green Bay Packers going into Kansas City to face the Chiefs. Who you got, Casey?
Give and take about the bad surprises already that Chiefs have been giving out. I'm going to go with the Green Bay. So I don't see myself going for the Chiefs on this one.
Yeah, I would have totally agreed with you if it wasn't for what happened today with Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
which makes this much closer than I want it to be. I literally don't know. I could flip a coin. So usually when I'm in flip a coin mode, I usually default to go with against you. So I am going to go with KC.
Next game is going to be the Arizona Cardinals versus the San Francisco Niners. Shawn.
You already know who you got because you know who I got.
I got your back on this one. I'm going to give it to Cardinals. I think Cardinals is going to take on the Niners.
Ooh,
I mean,
we're making you a believer.
give me like 2 more seasons and then we'll see. But I'm going to say Cardinals are going to take that win for sure.
Okay, and then our last game, the Sunday night game. The Tennessee Titans 6-2 are going to LA to face the Rams, who are 7-1.
Ooh.
Who you got, KC?
LA Rams all the way. They're coming to our town.
Yeah, I got the Rams too. As much as I talked about how good the Titans may still be without Derrick Henry with their schedule, the one game I said that was probably an L was the Rams. So yeah, I'm sticking with the Rams too.
Yep.
Okay, now it's time to move on to our next topic.
Can we talk about something else?
Okay, Casey, time to move on to the next topic, which is the World Series, which wrapped up last night. Braves take the title in 6 games, 4-2. I believe somebody on this podcast may have predicted that, who shall remain nameless, this guy. But, yeah, so the Braves won the title. Freddie Freeman played 12 years with the Braves, finally gets his title. Jorge Soler's your MVP. He had 3 home runs, all of which at the time gave the Braves a lead. And Max Fried last night pitches 6 innings, 4 hits, no runs, and all that after he had his ankle basically punctured.
Yikes.
So, KC, what were your thoughts on the World Series?
You know, Shawn, it's no surprise that the Braves won the World Series. I mean, given that, you know, the Braves have been going at it hard at every game that they've had. I mean, it was coming. And give and take, you know, they just had to leave and prove a point. I mean, they got what they came for, and that's what they took home. And I'm not surprised that the Braves took home the World Series. So that's my take of it. Even though, I mean, I would have loved it to have been the Dodgers, but we all know the Dodgers flunked out.
I realize the folks on the podcast can't see us talking to each other, but when you just mentioned the Dodgers, you got like the biggest eye roll in the world for me, because how the hell did you get this back to the Dodgers?
Because that's my home team, everybody. Like, that's my team. But, I mean, everybody's probably like, oh, shut up.
Okay, in that case, you know what? Go D-backs next year. 2022 World Series, here we go. See, I can do it too.
This man. But no, in all seriousness, congrats to the Braves.
Yeah, I was like Game 5 when they hit the grand slam in the first inning. My first thought was, damn, KC called it. She said Braves in 5. And then Houston woke up and they ended up winning that game. So when they won last night, my first thought was, damn right, I had Braves in 6. I'm a genius. So
no, but when you saw that, you were like,
yes, I was like, I can't believe that she's going to call this. And of course, I went trick-or-treating and came back and the route was on. But the other thing I'm proud of is I was absolutely correct about the commissioner.
Oh, that's right.
He got booed like I said he would, even though it was in Houston and even though 90% of the fan base had vacated the building. When he got up to start speaking to present the Braves the trophy, the boos came raining down as I said they would. But I don't think I don't think I was really going out on a very thin limb by saying that. All right, so let's do our little way too early next year predictions. I'm throwing this at you off the curve. We have nothing planned on this, so we're going to see really how bad this is. I'm not going to ask you who you got winning it because I know who you're going to say.
Exactly.
So, taking the Dodgers out of it.
I hate you.
Is there any other team you could plausibly see winning it next year?
You know, I'm going to give it to the Giants. I think they're going to be going off next season off to the playoffs. I mean, sorry, folks. Something got in my chest as soon as I said Giants. It's like my soul knows that it shouldn't be saying things like this. It's always going to have to be somewhere West Coast. That's all I'm going to say to you guys. I'm always going to choose West Coast side, so Giants.
I'm not far off from you because my thought for next year was the Padres. They still got that dynamic lineup, supposedly, on paper, although you couldn't tell it this year. But they also just hired Bob Melvin away
That's right.
from the Oakland Athletics. And the Athletics were pretty good this year, so I'm kind of banking on the fact of Bob Melvin getting that talented lineup around him. Maybe they can make a deep run. But other than that, the only other team I think could even come close might be the Rays, because like what the Giants did this year with mixed parts, everybody contributing, the Rays have been doing that for 5 years. They have kind of perfected that. So I don't know if they're going to win it all because they always seem to hit a roadblock, but I definitely see them being one of the better teams in the league next year.
Yeah.
Okay, now that the baseball season is officially over, now we can move on to our next topic. On to our next topic, which is college football, and more specifically, the College Football Committee has released their initial rankings of who, quote, is in and who's on the outside looking in as far as the playoffs. All right, KC, I'm going to run down the top 10 for you real quick. Number 1 is Georgia, 2, Alabama, 3, Michigan State, 4, Oregon, 5, Ohio State, 6, Cincinnati, 7, Michigan, 8, Oklahoma, 9, Wake Forest, and number 10, Notre Dame. All right, Casey, I know I got some blood-boiling thoughts on this, so I'm going to let you go first, but what is your initial reaction to the College Football Committee's rankings?
How is Cincinnati number 6?
And that seems to be what everybody's saying.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the way they ranked these teams up in the committee, but like Alabama 7-1. Oregon 7-1, Ohio State 7-1, and these are all the top 5 teams that are on the scoreboards, or top 5 teams. But you have Cincinnati, who is 8-0, Oklahoma, who is 9-0, and Wake Forest, who's 8-0, who are below number 5s. What the hell? So I get it, performance, but let's talk about overall record. That's what matters. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what's going to, qualify you. So enlighten me, Shawn. What the hell is the committee thinking?
This is why I'm not a big college football fan. This is exactly why. Because like you said, the records kind of should matter. But unfortunately, when it comes to college sports, the records never seem to matter. I was surprised at the list. I'm not going to lie. Like you said, Cincinnati dropped number 6. But the part that really surprised me wasn't necessarily the list itself. It was the BS explanations that we got from the committee as to why they were ranked this way. It's like, because if you want to tell me Alabama is the second best team in the country, we think they belong there, cool, fine. But when you say things like, quote, we don't talk about a team's ceiling, we look at what's happened so far. That is what he said when he was asked about Cincinnati. And he, being the committee chair, Gary Barza, if I'm saying it correctly, in my brain, I'm thinking, you're not looking at Cincinnati's ceiling, but you're clearly looking at Alabama's ceiling. Because if you're going off of what has happened so far, then how in the world do you have Cincinnati not only below Alabama, but below Ohio State, below Oregon? And it just makes no sense to me. Because let me run it down for you. Because I'm give you credit. You called Cincinnati like the second week of the season as being one of the top teams in the league. And I almost kind of laughed at you, but this was the reason I laughed at you, is because if you're not in a Power 5 conference, you're not going to get much respect, if at all. It would take the other conferences being bad for you to get in. And like I said, I was fine with these rankings until I heard the excuses. Because the other excuse they said is, we have great respect for Cincinnati. The win at Notre Dame was a really impressive win, but who else have they beaten? Gee, let me talk about it. Okay, yes, they beat Notre Dame, who at the time was a top 10 team. Let me run down who Alabama's beaten. Miami, not ranked. Florida, not ranked. Ole Miss, which is number 16, but they're not number 10. They lost to Texas A&M, which apparently now all of a sudden Texas A&M is 14, even though they weren't even ranked at the time. So they have literally taken the opponents of Alabama and started ranking them so that they can make Alabama's resume look better. But the one thing that Cincinnati has that Alabama does not is a win over a top 10 team combined with no losses. So I have no idea why Alabama is number 2 and Cincinnati is number 6.
And I mean, I get it. It's all about power, money, and just having the whole 9 yards of being up in the committee. But like, seriously, I mean, if you were to rank these like if it was the NFL, would this match? Would this even be close to what what we're looking for? I mean, as sports fan, are we really looking at how they performed tonight, or are we looking at scoreboards? I don't know.
Right, and you can't tell me you're looking at a team's performance as being the primary indicator, because if you were saying that, then Oregon wouldn't be 4. Because granted, they beat Ohio State, because I thought coming in to this that my biggest complaint was going to be how did the AP have Ohio State ahead of Oregon when Oregon beat Ohio State in Columbus? So that I thought that was going to be my biggest pet peeve with this. As it turns out, no. I mean, the committee has Oregon over Ohio State, as rightfully so. But Oregon has also lost to an unranked opponent. And oh, by the way, when they played Arizona, they did not look good. I don't care what that final score is. They had like 2 pick sixes in the last 5 minutes. Going into the fourth quarter of that game, it was a 3-point game. Right. So don't tell me that Oregon deserves to be higher than Cincinnati when Cincinnati's been blowing people out.
It's all of who the committee has money on. That's at this point. That's what I'm starting to believe. Cincinnati should be one of the top 3.
Right. If I had to, like, when we were doing the rankings before the committee came out, I had Georgia 1, Cincinnati 2. I had Michigan State 3 because they are undefeated and they're in a big power conference. And I had Oklahoma 4 because until proven otherwise, they haven't lost. Now, they haven't looked great in their wins, but they have not lost. That is big. So I am, as you can tell, I am frustrated. The bandwagon to keep Alabama in is atrocious. And like you said, it's probably all about the dollar signs.
Yeah, at this point.
All right, now I'm going to take a few moments to get my thoughts together and woosah a little bit, and then we'll move into our last segment. Okay, moving on to our last segment, and I call it a segment because we're going to do something a little different this time. Instead of talking about one topic, there's so much going on the last week or so in the sports world. We're going to do kind of like a hodgepodge of topics. We're going to go bounce around a couple different sports, just hit briefly on each topic. First is Henry Ruggs III, his DUI crash. He ended up killing a lady. It was brought out today that his speed just before his crash was up to 156 miles an hour, which is DUI is terrible on its own, but driving 156 miles an hour is almost just as bad, if not worse, even if you're sober. So, Hey, real quick, what are your thoughts on it?
I mean, you're talking about Ruggs driving a Chevrolet Corvette, right, at a high rate of 156 miles that rear-ended a Toyota RAV4. I could already imagine the whiplash that the lady had, but like the fact that the speed, the DUI, him being, all of these signs, it's terrible. And not to mention, like, I believe it went into flames, if I'm wrong, but
No, you're right. It was a vehicle fire, right? which kind of on that point, you can only hope and pray that she had passed before the flames.
The flames.
Yeah. That's a terrible way to go. I mean, there's really no great way to go, but dying death by fire has got to be one of the worst ways to go that I could think of.
And just a quick mention, I mean, that's not just like, that's manslaughter right there. Manslaughter on top of a DUI. And the only thing that they're saying right now is that Ruggs might just be looking at 20 years in prison. Seriously? You give if, like, per se, that this were to happen to a regular person that's not famous or anything, so much would have been done to make sure this person does not see another day out. But I mean, what the hell were you thinking?
Right. And you combine, first of all, you killed somebody. You killed a 23-year-old woman, which is already terrible. You pile on the speed of 156 miles an hour. You pile on the fact that your blood alcohol content was twice the legal limit in Nevada. It's just like, I'm sorry, you're going to jail.
Right.
Like, and rightfully so, your status as an NFL player should not and does not matter in a case like this. Somebody lost their life because of your stupidity. Assuming he's convicted, because, innocent until proven guilty, he deserves significant jail time.
Correct.
Okay, next one on the rapid fire list. Odell Beckham Jr. was pretty much excused from practice day by the Cleveland Browns. This comes right after his father had released a video on social media basically showing Baker Mayfield not throwing to OBJ. The rumor is that his time with the Browns may or may not be done. I'm presuming if they say that, it's probably something along the lines of a cut because the trade deadline has passed. But Casey, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, at the same time that this is all new to me, all I gotta say is, your dad posted a viral video of not being able to being passed the ball and stuff, but I can see why there's a lot of controversy between the teams and have not wanting him to have Odell come to practice with them. I mean, you already have your father setting you up virally throughout everybody that, your team's not communicating or trying to pass the ball to you and stuff. I would have done the same. I would have been like, you know what, stay home today for practice. We got a couple things to think about. So, I mean, this is new, and I'm actually waiting to see where Odell Beckham's going to be heading off to next.
Yeah, this kind of, to me, screams similar to LeVar Ball with his boys in the NBA of, you're not going to be sticking around very long if your father keeps butting into our business. Now, they told him to stay home from practice. A lot of folks are reading into it that, hey, they may be cutting him. His days may be numbered. Or it could just be one of those signs to Odell Beckham, hey, get your dad to shut up. Because this isn't his place to be. The only thing that kind of bothers me is if the Browns were going to cut him because of something his father did, then they must have already something else on their plate that's bothering them. Because let's face it, OBJ hasn't been very productive this year, and in the NFL is the kings of, hey, your performance can make us overlook a lot of off-field stuff, but this year he hasn't even had the performance. So if it just takes a video from your dad to get you cut, then they were already thinking about cutting you loose anyway. All right, next rapid-fire topic. We got Aaron Rodgers has come out today that he has tested positive for COVID. So he was asked if he was vaccinated at a press conference, and he didn't say vaccinated. He used a different word, like basically playing he was immune to it, but it was in the context where he was basically giving the belief that, yes, he's been vaccinated. Turns out that doesn't appear to have been the case. I believe I read an article today where he had previously asked the NFL, hey, I've got this alternate treatment instead of the vaccine. Will that count as being vaccinated? The NFL said no, which begs the question, then how come he's been wandering the sidelines without a mask and doing all this other stuff? Not saying he can't play, but like the unvaccinated players had to follow certain protocols that he clearly was not following. So He's already out for this week in Green Bay because he's got a mandatory 10-day quarantine because he's not vaccinated. And it's kind of also a big deal because there may be discipline coming down from the league. It may not be Aaron himself, but definitely the Packers probably knew. So it may be coming to them. But real quick, Casey, what's your thoughts on that?
I mean, this is a slap in the hand for Aaron Rodgers. You basically have the NFL setting out guidelines like, hey, in order to play, you need to have X, Y, and Z. That's kind of like telling us who are showing up to, restaurants and Disney and all those fun places that, hey, you need to have Vax cards. Yes, of course you're going to go do it. But there shouldn't be any difference if someone doesn't do it. I'm glad that they said, Aaron Rodgers, you need to sit out and X, Y, and Z. I hope there's a little bit more than just a slap in the hand kind of thing. I hope they kind of teach him a lesson for not following the protocols and also kind of leading up to making sure the rest of the NFL players are following it. I mean, not only is he endangering his team, but those are people who he comes in contact with. I mean, not to mention like the Cardinals, they just had a game. So imagine that. You have one person who gets sick on the field. Next thing you know, it's spread all over and it starts spreading slowly like a domino effect. So there should be a little bit more of a consequences done about it. I'm really waiting to see what they're going to do. I know we just got to wait out the couple days, but I hope they tell him, like, hey, if you want to continue playing, you're going to have to get vaccinated. And by all means, we're going to have to watch you get vaccinated at this point.
Well, kind of to your point, it was just also released today. AJ Green is tested positive for COVID, and now he might not be playing Sunday. So I'm not saying he got COVID from Aaron Rodgers. I'm not going that far with it, but I can't say that he didn't get it from Aaron Rodgers. But it's not so much the fact whether he's vaccinated or not that I have a problem with. It's the fact of the NFL had these guidelines in place. If you're vaccinated, this is what you can and cannot do. If you're not vaccinated, this is what you can and cannot do. And he operated for the first 8 weeks of the season under the, hey, I'm vaccinated guidelines. If you're not vaccinated on the sideline, you're supposed to be wearing a mask. There's other things that they have in place. He was doing none of that beforehand. So that, to me, is the bigger issue. Not so much that he's not vaccinated, because it is pretty much right now their right not to get it. However, if you don't get it, you have to follow the rules, and he clearly did not follow rules. So like you said, if they don't come down at least on him a little bit, good luck telling the next player that they have to do something, because that will never fly.
Yeah, no, definitely. So that's something we have to keep out an eye for.
Okay, next rapid fire topic. Speaking of football, Katie, you watched the Colin Kaepernick documentary. I unfortunately have not had the chance to see it yet, but it is on my to-do list. I promise you I will watch it. But what are your initial thoughts on the documentary?
You know, watching the documentary was more of Colin Kaepernick's perspective of coming into the NFL and the way he was raised. One thing for sure, I was surprised that he was adopted by white parents. From his point of view, he spoke a lot about how different it was being raised. He talked about how, you know, little by little as he got older and it was more exposed into the sports and having to travel and everything, he saw the difference of how people's attitude and how people change when they saw him with his parents, and then also when they saw him by himself, like two different perspectives. He touches a lot about that. And he also goes into kind of connecting how NFL is kind of quote unquote, like selling a man to slavery again. You know, they look at how tall they are, how muscular they are, how toned they are. They look at how dark or more lighter you are. They look at all these characteristics of a person before they are sold into going into the draft or into a team again. You know, it's a lot of, and you know, it's something interesting. I really want to wait on this one to get your perspective on it, but just to touch up on about it, there's a lot of I likes and I don't likes. I mean, naming one, an ex-Giant, Jack Brewer, who calls Kaepernick evil for his Netflix documentary. You know, he came out saying, you know, quote unquote, that Kaepernick is just, has an evil anti-American spirit and it's sick and disgusting. And I can see how both perspectives come into play. Like, I understand where Brewer is viewing this, but also I understand where Kaepernick is coming from this point of view. He's just kind of telling his story and how his struggles were growing up, you know, and it's something that someone, for sure, it's just like you said last week, it's not going to cause people to change their perspectives or anything. And if anything, it might cause more hate or more love, you know, but you have to come watching this documentary with an open mind. You can't come close-minded, and you can't come just saying you're sick or anything. You gotta look at both ways. But definitely, Colin, he showed a lot of his struggles of how he was always second and how he was never the first choice. And in this case, I mean, he kind of, you know, released some anger that he had about the whole issue, but he also released anger of his childhood of trying to make it in the big leagues. Definitely, we're going to be touching up on this a little bit more with Colin, but, you know, just as soon as Shawn over here watches more about it, I mean, I think it's going to get a little bit more interesting of a talk.
I'll watch it. Like, I just got caught up with Thursday Night Football and the World Series, and the documentary's not going anywhere. So, like, but I meant to watch it, and it just, life and the other titles got in the way. So, like, but I'll get it watched. We'll talk more about it.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next catch-all topic. I learned this actually on the way home today. I don't think it's actually official till tomorrow, but I have learned that Buster Posey is set to retire tomorrow, ending his career with professional baseball. 3-time champ, 7-time All-Star, 2010 Rookie of the Year, 2012 MVP, and the batting title. Interesting point, the team had already said that they would be willing to pick up his $22 million option next year if he wanted to play. He has chosen to forego that and has chosen to retire, citing times with the family. I personally think he's a Hall of Famer. Katie, I hope you think so too. If not, I'd like to hear your thoughts. But in general, what are your thoughts on Posey retiring?
What the hell did you just hit me with? I heard a lot about Posey, and especially because my fiance is a huge Posey fan, but it's crazy. Definitely a crazy subject to touch upon, and I have to definitely want to read more into this because once I break the news too, I mean, this is something that's wow. This is huge for San Francisco. All your Giants fans. So definitely, growing up and seeing the Dodgers always against the Giants is something that Posey. So seeing Posey actually just hang up the jersey is going to be, I got to say, a tough one. Because like you said, Posey is one of the Hall of Fame's types of person that you want to remember. So
yeah, I think reading between some of the lines of his comments at the end of the year, looking back, I think when he opted out of last year for the COVID year and spending time with the family, I think he got a little bit of a taste of that. And he's like, hey, I'd rather be doing this than squatting for 162 games during the season. So I think he's definitely wanted to do it for family, especially if you're willing to turn down $22 million for the next year. Your mind is made up. This isn't like, oh, I'll just write off. Like, no, I'm done. I'm moving on.
Yeah.
And our last hodgepodge topic, my favorite topic, because you thought my blood boiled for the college football. This topic every year just ticks me off, but I have to bring it up. KC, is commonly known that there are many people in this world that as soon as Halloween is over, they instantly start celebrating Christmas. No. I, for the life of me, do not understand how people jump from Halloween to Christmas and completely disrespect Thanksgiving. What are your thoughts?
What the hell, peeps? Like, honestly, like, you still have a whole holiday to go through. You still need to be thankful for having everything you have in life. I mean, you can't just go from one moment of, was it Nightmare Before Christmas, all horror movies coming out, Michael Myers and all this, to just, oh, Santa's coming. What? And not to mention the Mariah Carey songs that go on and on and on every single time you walk into a supermarket, a retail store, or even to say the mall. I mean, the mall is a retail, but I used to walk through it because my mom wanted to get her exercise in. And let me tell you, walking through it during Christmas is a nightmare.
I was going to say, you still go to the mall? Who goes to the mall anymore?
It's called ship home because I don't got time to be going shopping and standing in line. But definitely it's something that I agree with you. I mean, just today, I passed by about 5 houses that already have Christmas lights up. We still got time. We're not there yet. I could see this happening as soon as Thanksgiving hits, but not any time beforehand.
Right. That's my frustration. That's my frustration with this whole thing. Like, if you're a business, I get it. You want to get out in front, especially this year when there's a threat of the economy going in the tank. I get, like, businesses putting out Christmas stuff early. That part of it doesn't bother me. And I will fully admit, the day after Thanksgiving, it is tradition in my house. That's when the Christmas decorations go up.
Yeah.
But as big as I am on Christmas, I will not disrespect Thanksgiving. I just can't do it. And I'm not just doing it to celebrate America's gluttony. That's not, me and my family, we honestly do it as, hey, let's take a moment and let's think about what we're thankful for. We go around the table. It's a tradition almost. So I don't understand how you can just totally skip a major holiday. Like, you don't celebrate Labor Day before the 4th of July. You don't celebrate Father's Day before Mother's Day. Like, it just, hell, you know what? Why don't we celebrate New Year's before Christmas if we're going to do it that way? Like, it just, no, you can't do it.
It's just, I find it ridiculous, and it's getting old at this point. It's like, come on, people, just wait a little bit longer. You still have pillows to put up of thankful, or like even pillows that look orange and gray because it's Thanksgiving coming out, but you don't just jump into red and green. Not automatically, at least, but I guess that's what people do nowadays, and they've been doing it for years and years, and it's years later that they're going to continue, and it's, let me just say, it's frustrating.
Okay, that's our show for today. I hope you guys liked it. KC, if the folks want more of you, where can they find you?
You guys can find me on Twitter. Find me on Katie17287. Anytime you guys want to reach out. But also, Shawn, where can they find you?
Well, they can find me on Twitter at Shawn_Brady82. That's SHAWN_BRADY82. But they can also find both of us at our show's Twitter handle, which is at Excuse My Frenemy. So I encourage folks, if you go on there, you want to give us topics, you want to give us feedback, you want to argue a little bit, please go there and let us know. By the way, shout out to my buddy Ben Framball, who followed us and then instantly started yelling at me for not telling him we had a podcast. But shout out to you, my man. I miss you. Katie, I had fun. Hope you had fun. You want to do it next week?
You already know.
All right, I'll see you then.
Later.